David and Flo has talked about with fungicides, since I do rent bees to growers, and with our cultural costs and practices, bees keep going up every year. So what I want to emphasize is when you guys spray fungicides, try to spray them late in the afternoon till about 3 in the morning.
He says you need it.
Okay. Here's some pictures you can pass around. Anyways, these pictures are of one of my growers that actually sprayed Roverall and 415 oil. The bees aren't, and he sprayed during the middle of the day. So all them bees didn't make it back, they're not going to go back. So what I'm trying to emphasize is all of us as growers pay a lot of money for bees, but if you're spraying stuff that's going to kill them, you're not going to get your money's worth. We have to coexist, and this is a really big issue with the beekeeping side of it. We take bees to the orchards, and a lot of times half of them will come back dead. If they're not dead coming out of the orchard in the next 60 days, the next 2-3 generations never emerge. That's part of the cultural costs that we have to incur, and that's why the rental rates keep going higher and higher. Roverall is not a good choice. That active ingredient, if the bees get sprayed, the foragers are dead. So really what I'm trying to say is just ask your PCAs why you're going to spray something. Insect growth regulators at bloom time is a big no-no. These guys are a lot of these PCAs will have you spray an insect growth regulator. The label doesn't say it hurts the bees. It does hurt the brood. Bees are insects. It's going to get them. The differences in the fungicides. Another one that's misrepresented is boron. Boric acid at bloom is actually a pesticide. You're going to deter your pollination. If you need to spray boron, try to do it after petal fall, or do it in the fall. Boron and zinc in October will more than sufficiently supply that tree. I guess my emphasis is on ask your PCAs why you're spraying what you're spraying, because the fungicides play a big role in what you're getting for your pollination. Kind of the way it works is if you kill the foragers and you have good hives, the bees are socialists, but the foragers are gone. It takes a day or two for the bees to realize they need more foragers. So for them 2 days, you really don't have the same volume pollinating. It's kind of all a harmony. This past winter, or this past bloom time, we probably only had at best 50% flight time. This was a real crucial year, and we had a lot of airplanes. So nobody could get in to spray. A lot of guys did it with the airplanes. As beekeepers, we're going to see the effects 60 days down the road. It's hard to explain it, but the best thing to do is just ask why that guy is having you spray what he's having you spray, and think about the money you spent on the bees. It's really crucial to try to only spray at night. The big growers, I get it. Too many acres, you can't get it done. But figure out what you are spraying and how it's going to affect the bees. A lot of the PCAs don't really know, and that's one of the biggest issues from both sides of the fence. We are sustainable. We raise queens. We made our own queens. So a lot of the stuff that I see happens 30 to 60 days after we pull them out of pollination. It's quite evident at different fungicides, the timing of different fungicides. Like we all spray Acadian. Any of them things that we spray as far as foliars, as nutrients, a lot of that stuff deters your own pollination. It's better from the beekeeping side if you wait until close to petal fall to spray them nutrients. That way, most of your orchard's already been pollinated. It's pretty much done. The balance doesn't really matter. Another thing is if you look at the blossom, the bees are on the outside of that blossom collecting pollen. Along about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on temperature and humidity, If you go out there, the bees are in the bottom of the blossom trying to get whatever nectar is in that blossom. At that time, you guys could start spraying because all the pollen foragers are already back. So your workforce is still there. The remainder of them are collecting nectar. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of how the harmony of the hive works. Each bee has a job, and all we're interested in is the ones that's collecting pollen. So it's kind of a little, you know, sometimes that happens at 2 in the afternoon, sometimes not till 4. That's when you can really just start. We only spray at night. I don't use any spreaders. I use no oil, no adjuvants at all. I just spray fungicides. And we seem to do okay. A lot of that stuff is very, very deterrent. So it's on both sides of the fence. As growers, we need to protect the crop, but also a lot of guys say, you know, you're going to get a free ride, but do you really get that free ride when you're spraying? If you do something to deter your own pollination, was that ride really free? And I think that's what I'm trying to get you guys to think about. Ask why they're having you do something, especially at full bloom. That's the best pollination. You can get away with a lot of stuff at pink bud, 5%, and at petal fall, but full bloom is really, really crucial. So it kind of goes along with what they're saying. We got to use the fungicides, but I think there's a time and place when we have to use them if you're looking at the bees. So you guys have any questions?
Does the spraying at night still use like if you're spraying like the boron at night, is it going to still deter the bees the next day, or
It'll still deter the bees. It won't kill them.
But it's still going to deter them away from your pollination.
The boron will. Same as Acadian. Yeah, Acadian seaweed. We all sprayed it. You can smell that stuff. So think about what that does as far as the bee getting on the blossom.
Yeah.
You know, bees pollinate by what's there and the smell. That's how they get to it. So there's a lot of, I'm sure you guys all rent bees, so.
Oh yeah.
It's not going to get any cheaper, guys. It's going to get more expensive just because of the cultural cost. Now, as beekeepers, we can't even use antibiotics anymore unless we go to a veterinarian. That's the FDA. So to get an antibiotic, if the bees are sick or whatever, we got to go get a veterinarian that knows nothing about bees, come look to see you have bees, and then write a prescription. So as all this thing evolves, it's just going to get worse. I don't know what, you know, the average rate right now is what, 175 to 200 a hive? You know, some guys are up or down, but still, the price of nuts aren't that good right now. So if you can help in any way and get a better pollination, save the bees, the cost, that's a lot of the problem with beekeepers. Sometimes we sustain as much as 40% loss year after year. If we sustained that kind of loss in almonds, we wouldn't be in business. So if we can reduce them losses, you shouldn't have to raise prices. It's kind of coexistent. Anyways, that's really what I had to go with what they had, is just ask why when that PCA gives you something, and figure out what's going to really be your best bang for your buck. The fungicides, if you look at them pictures that we took, that happened to be on one of my hives or in one of my orchards over here that we do pollinate. If you pass that around and let everybody see it, them guys never got back to the hive. That's in front of the hive, but they're all on the ground and they're loaded with pollen. So for me, it was a good thing they didn't make it back. The wax in the hive is like a sponge, so every time that bee comes back with the fungicide or the pesticide, the wax absorbs just like a sponge. That's why we look at 30 to 60 days after pollination to see what's going on. So it's, some of you guys I know don't want to hear this stuff, but it's really crucial to what you're paying your money for bees. They are insects. You've got to kind of respect what you're paying your money for. Well, that's really all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Okay, I want to thank you again all for coming, and hopefully you filled out an evaluation and gave us some ideas on what you want to hear about for future meetings. And so we'll look forward to catching up with you again as the season goes on, and be sure and make sure you signed in for the things you needed, grab a cookie, and thanks for coming.
Are you gonna pop those?